welcome to the 25th edition of Drive-Thru Review. Today we're going to talk about Soviet Dawn. It's the second in a two-part series. The first one was Ottoman Sunset. If you haven't watched that one, you might want to watch it first because I'll probably be referring to elements of that in this video. And Soviet Dawn is about the dawn of the Soviet Union and the formation of the communist empire. And it's a pretty good treatment of it. I'm not a huge history buff. I do enjoy history. This is a particular portion of history that interests me, and for various reasons. But let me just jump into how the game works, and I'll be talking a lot about how it's different than Ottoman Dawn, Ottoman Sunset. Get that? Sunset, Dawn. Anyway, let me jump into how this one works and come back and share a little bit of my thoughts. Okay, so similar to Ottoman Sunset, you're going to have a bunch of different armies on different tracks trying to come in and quote-unquote invade Moscow. Now, historically, these armies didn't necessarily physically invade it, but they conquered enough of the surrounding area to could have conquered enough of the surrounding area to basically make Moscow unsustainable by itself. So just like before, you're going to pull up a card, you're going to see which armies advance. There may be an event of some kind or some condition, and then it's going to give you a number of actions that you can do. Now, in the case of this game, the Soviet Union actually did form, whereas in Ottoman Sunset, the Ottoman Empire fell, but the point of the game is to try to change history. In this case, it's not to try to meet history exactly, because there's actually conditions where you can have a better victory versus more of a mediocre victory. And that the same thing happens in Ottoman Sunset as well. But this one is a lot more chaotic and a lot less methodical than Ottoman Sunset. And historically, I don't know how accurate that is, but I tell you, I do like that the games do play and feel different. So you have to remember that when the Soviet Union was forming, there was a lot of different factions of inside of Russia itself. You had the Tsars, the Bolsheviks, the Democrats, some socialists, your hardline communists, that sort of thing. And communism was really sort of forming its identity at that time. So back to the actions. You can roll a die, and it's a tiny die. However, in this game, I feel that it's appropriate that the die is red. You can also try to advance yourself on this political track. And it's similar to the Ottoman Sunset national will track, where if you get down to 0 here, you lose the game. Soviet Union collapses. However, you can also win the game if you're able to get it all the way up here. And that's actually the only way I've won the game so far. The other way to win the game is to go through the deck of cards all the way through, and that's considered a military victory versus a political victory. So you can roll the dice to beat back an army, to advance your political track. You can also try to organize the Red Army. This is very difficult to do. You have to roll a 6, and occasionally you'll get dice roll modifiers by events to help you with this. But you have to roll a 6, and then you roll a dice again to see which one of these you randomly get. But these are actually pretty effective, so it makes sense that they're pretty hard to get. However, I want to say that I play with the advanced rules that give you one of them off the bat. Because to be honest with you, I find this game quite a bit more difficult than Ottoman Sunset. Now, that being said, I thought maybe that I should be able to play this historically and go in card order. But that actually is not really balanced, and I don't think the game was necessarily designed with that. Now, when you get the expansion, which I have, it adds in the missing cards to make this play historically, and it adds in a couple more advanced rules, including the one that lets you take this organization marker to start the game. But the game, I feel, and some of the rules and some of the things on the cards don't really lend themselves to playing it in a direct historical order. And I actually think that's probably for the best. Because after reading through some of the cards and sort of getting a sense of the history through the game, the formation of the state was really precarious. And I don't think I ever really, that really came across to me in my history books or anything. So there's a lot of push your luck to this. But you really want to keep this political thing moving up, because there are cards that will, reduce your political level by one, it's just an event. If any armies ever get into Petrograd here, or Kiev, or later in the game if they break through this custom line, it'll start knocking it down. And so you really want to sort of just keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. There's not a lot you can prepare for in the way that you can prepare for it in the Ottoman Sunset. And it's got a real sort of seat of your pants, very intense feel. Probably a little bit more intense than Ottoman Sunset. Like I said, it's a lot less methodical. Some things that the advanced rules add is that if you've got any active fronts here on one of these tracks, you can actually push them back and kind of lock them in there and confuse them, so that when they're supposed to advance, you basically have to untap these fronts before they move forward. Another thing you can do is you can use some of these reserve offenses, the political decrees, to help use more actions than you're given on the turn by the cards, to really sort of, you're probably on the brink of losing. You're on the brink of losing, and you just got to get those few extra, random chances in there just to give you that, hopefully, that edge. And there's a couple other nice aspects to this game. So in the early set of cards, because it's just like Ottoman Sunset, where you have sort of a dawn, a midday, and a dusk. In one of the dawn cards, quote unquote, you're going to have to actually make a choice here. And it prints out the alternative here on the board. You can see there's a card printed on the board. And here's the card that you'll draw. And it's pretty neat, because you can actually choose, if you sign the Brest-Litovsk, I don't know how to pronounce it, the Brest-Litovsk Treaty, and if you do or don't, it'll change how Germany and the Allies react to you. And then you'll move this marker here to show which one you chose, because some of the other cards later in the game will depend and change their events based on which one of these you chose. And then later in the game, Germany, surrenders in World War I, and so you move the marker there, and some other events are based on that. So given the chaotic nature of your enemies here, all of the fronts will start on the board, but they may or may not be active depending on your outward position based on some of the decisions you make in the event card. And the big one, like I said, is the treaty. So there's really a lot of chaos, and there's a lot of sort of jockeying and manipulation, which is, that's a pretty communist thing. But there's a lot of that going on in trying to juggle all of this. Whereas in Ottoman Sunset, there's a definite, oppression and progression of doom to the destruction of Constantinople, where this is sort of the reverse. You're just sort of sitting there, juggling all of these fronts and armies in the events and your political track. And it comes across that way. And I think playing it historically probably is a disservice to the game and design itself. I'm glad I got the expansion cards, because it has a lot of really good rules in this expansion rule. You can almost just print this off, though, off the Victory Point game site and play with these rules. I would definitely recommend that if you don't feel like spending the extra $5 for the expansion cards, because these really add a little bit of depth to the game, in my opinion. It just gives you a little bit something extra to do besides just, bumping these back. And it's like, okay, well, Finland's not doing a whole lot, but I'm going to pin it because we're still kind of in the early area. And, I don't know that they're going to be inactive anytime soon. So I can try to pin it up against the back there. And it's nice to really start with this Cheka, which will actually let you basically, counterspell any of these cards that come forward and shuffle it back in. Because it seems like in this game, more than Ottoman Sunset, you can get that really bad string of bad luck with the cards. So it's nice to have this guy in your pocket to start the game. Because this Baltic thing, man, it just moves up quick in this first set. So I really like that. Definitely recommend some of the advanced rules from the expansion. So like I said, there's a lot of chaos here, but it fits the theme. It really fits.
everything fits the dice rolling. Trying to get these reorganization chits that are really strong, and push your political track up as far as you can. And there's a cool little trick you can do with the advanced rules on some of these breaks here in the political track. Yeah, so communists, chaos, World War One.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed my overview there of Soviet Dawn. I want to make an apology for both videos if there was any somewhat inaccurate or quickly summarized historical statements. Forgive me. Anyway, but and I just wanted to say that the all the cards in both these games have flavor text on them, pretty in depth, and they both come with designer notes. And it's something that is fun to read as you're kind of sitting there experiencing the history in front of you. Um, when you read a book or whatever, even watching like a documentary, uh, you're just basically being fed the history. When it's kind of like, yeah, this side won, this side lost, blah blah blah. But when you have to sit there and make a decision, do I try to increase my political track, or an Ottoman sunset? Do I spend my resources over here, putting some dice roll modifier markers in this front or that front? Um, it makes you really think in a different way that I think is hard for me to articulate because it's not really my uh, area of expertise at all. But it's like Twilight Struggle's got that same deal, in Labyrinth and some of those good GMT games where you have the event in front of you in the card, and you've got to say, okay, I kind of have an idea from history what this was about, and if it's a good game, then it's going to make you link up, sort of where the state of the game is versus what you know about that environment and everything, and try to make a good decision, which isn't always going to be, robotic. So anyway, I hope people are getting where I'm going with this. But anyway, I'd like to see more games about this era of time in World War One, where the sort of explosion of chaos in Eastern Europe and Western Europe uh, led to World War One and then Hitler. Be interesting to see more games like this. Anyway, just wanted to reiterate: you get the advanced rules. Seems to be sort of modus operandi for Victory Point games. Get the first one, and then make sure you get the expansion for the really good version. Anyway, thank you.